start the recording because it's 6 o'clock. But there's so many platforms and different systems that people have. There's bound to be glitches because, yeah. But I don't, I'll go with the flow. It's not a big deal.
I appreciate that.
Sure. Anything else we can that would be helpful for you to discuss?
I was looking at the assignment, and I guess there was a word count difference that Brandy noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, John. Glad you could join us. Yeah, she did. Sharp on Brandy. But I posted something in announcements about that, and I'm going to go with the lower word counter, the up to 175 words on the responses necessary for the Hewlett-Packard case study. And I attached in my announcement a modified grading guide. For some reason, I cannot get my modified grading guide to post in the syllabus with the assignment. The old one was there, but I went to replace it a couple of days ago, and it's just not there. I can't get it. But you don't necessarily need the grading guide. It's helpful, and so I posted it to announcements for you. But you just need the actual case study and the questions that are asked so you can complete it.
Okay.
Hey, John, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. Can you believe it's week 6?
I know. It flew by. It really did.
It did
I had a good time.
by.
It was an enjoyable class.
Very enjoyable. Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm very glad. Well, your time's valuable to me, so I'm going to get started with my presentation, if you guys are cool with that.
Sure.
So I'm going to share my desktop. Let me know when you see my desktop. There is Sharp-Eyed Brandy. She just joined us. Hello, Brandy. Good evening. I'm glad you're here with us. And Sean's with us too. Good evening, Sean. So glad you could join us. We're just about to start on my PowerPoint presentation, so you're right on time. Let me know when you see this so I know when to go forward.
I can see it.
Great. Anybody else?
Yep, I got it.
There's Brandy.
Good to go.
Else? Okay, I'm going to move forward. Welcome to the Week 6 live session. I'm glad that you made it. The last one for our class, and this class really whizzed by. So let's move forward. Tonight's objectives, we're going to look at who's here, give you a chance to ask questions, talk about the objectives for week 6, talk about the assignment, which Kathleen and I have already done a little bit, and discuss anything else on your mind. The sad, sad thing about our class is that there's no 15-point, 30-question final exam like there was in the previous version. And so I know it's a disappointment, but we're just going to have to live with it. Well, who's here? Okay. This is my Disneyland pin thing, okay? So that's what I was wearing the other day. I wanted to compare mine with my nephew's, who's big into the Disneyland pins. And I don't know that any of you are. Anyway, I wanted to explain. Anybody have questions off the bat that I can help you with? Great. Let's proceed. Our objectives for week 6, we're talking a lot about change and change management. And you know, the way that the class has been reconfigured, I think my use of the J.C. Penney case, which you might remember from week 3, would be better done here as a supplemental material for change management, which is something that former Penney CEO Ron Johnson attempted to do with his ill-fated desire to have pennies turn into an Apple Junior. But I think I will change my syllabus for my class that starts next week to move that case study to week 6. Do you think that's a good idea? I'd like your feedback on that. Anybody?
I agree.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, I think it'd be more useful there. Okay, thank you. Um, so change management and innovation. I don't have a lecture prepared. I never do for this, but that is something that is extremely important. The examples of companies that don't do a great job of change management are many. You can think of some just off the bat. Some of my favorites are like Blockbuster Video and Hollywood Video. That's another one. Sears and Penny's, which are going down the tubes way too fast. I will miss them, and I think Sears is really on the brink. Amazon and other smaller retailers like Kohl's, if you're a Kohl's shopper, are just taking what was once the biggest retailer in the world, that was Sears. And then Walmart overtook them, and it looks like Amazon is overtaking Walmart. But it's difficult to see the things that are changing that will impact your business. And that's where a good study of things like that on the part of management are a good idea. You know, Sears has an online presence, Penny's has an online presence, but they're not Amazon by any means. What's the difference? I don't know. Some of them try free shipping. I think Walmart had free shipping earlier this week, or maybe it was last week. I didn't buy anything on Walmart.com because of it. But free shipping's a big enticement, and there is a cost associated with that. So in some cases, that requires a markup. It's just an example of change and the necessity for managers to implement, understand, see the impacts of emerging trends and innovations in their respective markets. They had a really good case study with Howard Schultz, former CEO, of Starbucks, and that they changed their logo to kind of de-emphasize the coffee side and more emphasize just the Starbucks brand. Is that good? Is that bad? Well, there were a lot of positive comments, and I could see that. Maybe there's something for me at Starbucks, since I'm not a coffee drinker. I don't know. I'm not a big pastry eater. Try to stay away from that. I'm not always successful. But I don't know. Maybe I can be enticed. You know, we talked earlier in this class about IHOP and the change in their name to IHOB. Anybody remember that? Well, the B is burgers, and I don't think it's a good idea, but I don't work for them. Nobody hired me. Maybe the specialty restaurants that do breakfast or some of the more fast food places that are expanding their breakfast menus are cutting into the IHOP bottom line enough to where they feel they have to do something. That I can understand. But a manager has to be able to see some of these things. Anybody old enough to remember something called a gas war? Is that?
Unfortunately, I am.
Well, I definitely am. And don't laugh, but I remember when gas was 25 cents a gallon. And I remember gas stations catty corner from each other, putting out signs on the corner saying gas war. And the idea was not to fling gasoline at each other, but rather to cut the price of a gallon of gas so as to draw in more business. And that is something that can be relatively successful. And in order to recoup the cost of a cut in the price of gas, they did other things, like maybe hike up the cost of an oil change. And if you remember gas wars, you might remember that service stations were not self-serve. That didn't happen until around 1974. Nobody pumped their own gas prior to that. It was all done by gas station attendants. Well, those have a cost. And there were also gimmicks they used, like giving away a dish for a fill-up, or you might remember styrofoam antenna balls. I don't know if any of you remember that sort of thing, but I do. I know, Ron, write a book about it. Well, maybe I will sometime. But in any case, you see managers doing things to increase business as they see that the changes that are upon them are yielding results, and that they know they can't sit still. Anybody else got an example of that you wanted to talk about, or is the idea of management and change something that you'd like more explanation of?
Well, I wanted to say something about JCPenney. I noticed that they took on MAC Cosmetics, so like I guess to draw in more people, and I think they're also selling appliances now.
Yeah, they are. That's right.
So, but it doesn't seem to be, I don't, maybe not helping them, but I would have thought that it would have increased their sales. I mean, because MAC is a very well-known cosmetic line. So it seems like JCPenney is trying to, get with the super trends, but it doesn't seem like they're successful.
I really haven't heard or read anything about their experiment with selling high-dollar appliances. But there are not a lot of places that do. Sears has kind of trimmed their line, although my local Sears has a fairly good selection. Lowe's department store, building supply store has a good line of appliances, and so does their competition, Home Depot. It seemed like a strange thing to me because you need a lot of floor space for that. When I'm picking out a refrigerator or helping my wife with a washer or dryer, we like to see lots and lots of examples. So that takes a lot of floor space, and so that is a compromise. What was there before, whether it's clothing or hard lines or whatever, is being displaced. I hope that they're making up for it. Appliances can be a fairly high profit margin thing, depending on how they're priced and their turnover or how quickly they sell. But it was a little strange to me to see that. Anybody else like to provide an example of change? It doesn't have to be in retail. It can be, there's lots of changes in the HR world. The advent of the ACA or Obamacare really caused a lot of changes for HR people, and they had to implement a lot of new procedures. Some of them were not very popular because some of them were, providing a greater cost of health insurance for less coverage. Not in every case, not every place. But all those changes, whether by regulation, government regulation, which happens quite a bit, by market trends, demographics, like the increased number of women in executive positions, all these have consequences, and change management is something that is necessary to be able to keep up with those trends. I don't know if you read Jackie's posts, and I wish Jackie was here. I would love to talk with her and not about her, but she had mentioned in a number of posts how anxious she was to see women promoted to executive ranks in more businesses, and she thinks that would be helpful to women at large by having folks in a place of prominence to be able to represent the interests of women, which men cannot do as well. And I'm not sure I disagree with that reasoning. But anyway, Jackie's not here. You're not here, right, Jackie? Let me look at my screen. No, it's just Brandy, John, Kathleen, and Sean. Any further discussion of change and change management and our week 6 objectives? The case study with about Meg Whitman and Hewlett Packard really gets into this and some of the changes she made and why. It's good stuff.
I wanted to say I work for the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, and our whole health system is just huge. And we were one hospital about 27 years ago, and now we've branched out to. We have our own health insurance company. We have our own IT company. We have our own company that creates different documentation systems for our insurance agency. We've branched out to different countries, taken, I mean, it's amazing how large we are and what we've done. But the way that our CEO thinks is that we need these other businesses in order to support our hospitals because reimbursements are low. They're not what they used to be. Patients aren't in the hospital for long periods of time. So we needed other ways to bring income into the system and keep us viable. So that's what they did. And you mentioned women. Our top CEO of our insurance company is a woman, and she's awesome. She's won awards all over the United States for what she's done with our health plan. So it's really it's huge and pretty amazing.
Well, that's great, and I'm glad to see a business expand like that, especially under somewhat trying circumstances with government regulation as required under the Americans, Affordable Health Care Act, ACA, excuse me, or Obamacare. So that's great. And your own IT business? Wow.
Yeah, and technology. We've developed several different technologies, a robotic arm for in the operating room.
Oh, wow.
We work with Carnegie Mellon University on that. They've done different, telehealth and telemedicine type things. I worked in a clinic, an employee health clinic, and we started something that a lot of places had, and that was a way for employees to come in if they were ill. They could be seen by a nurse practitioner. It didn't cost them a penny. So they could come on their lunch break, or if they were sick, the manager could send them down to see us.
Nice.
And we had telemedicine that went to a couple different facilities. So it was pretty interesting how it rolled out.
Yeah. Some of this stuff, the emerging trends in medicine, are fascinating. I'm going to ask you a question, Kathleen, and don't feel obligated to answer. Do you watch any of those hospital shows?
No, I don't actually. I don't have time to watch TV. Very rarely do I watch TV.
Well, I can understand, seeing as you're doubling up. I'm not sure how you sleep either, but
I don't.
yeah. I just wonder because some of the things you were talking about, like robotic surgery and stuff, is on some of the shows I watch, and I find medicine fascinating. But anyway, thank you for your input on that. That's really some great changes. Any further discussion on our Week 6 objectives? That being the case, we'll plow into our Week 6 assignment. There's supposed to be a 6 here, just so you know. Anyway, the Hewlett-Packard case study analysis. It seems pretty straightforward. I have it up here, and I'll expand it a little bit so you can see it. And it talks about Meg and some of the things she did as innovations and why. And then it asks you to talk about some of those super trends, forces of change, and so forth. Any questions or concerns about this? Wow, that's fantastic. It is pretty straightforward. And I don't think it should hang anybody up. If they read the case study, the questions are quite answerable. So that's great. That's great. All right, well, I'm going to move on with my presentation. Anything else? Was there something else I wanted to talk about? It wasn't next week's assignment, that's for sure. Oh, yeah. So I did post something, and I don't know if anybody saw it, but I posted an invitation for you to provide my incoming class with any feedback about the course, or their new students, many of them, most of them, if not all of them. I don't have the roster yet. Anything that you think might help them in terms of doing what's necessary to set up a proper schedule, to complete all the assignments, readings, interactions, and so forth, or anything you think they should know about the subject matter or their instructor who's eccentric, anything at all like that. You put it down and I'll provide it to them. Did you see that? Did you see my posting for that in the syllabus?
Yes.
Okay, good. So don't hold back. If something's on your mind, please do so. Please, Kathleen, don't recommend that they double up.
I definitely won't do that. If it wasn't for, being finished and a promotion on the edge, I probably wouldn't have done it either. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it is not for the faint of heart. That's for sure. Anyway, but you're right at the end, so good for you. Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments or anything you want discussed? Guess when I'm going to have final grades posted. Go ahead, just guess.
When?
It'll be Tuesday. All right, anything else I can do for anyone? My presentation's over, so I'm going to just get rid of it, and I'm going to de-share my desktop. Let's see, here we go. So you can see my mug. Anyway, anything else I can do for you guys? That being the case, thank you again for attending the live session. Sean, were you going to say something?
No, that was just going to say good night and thanks again.
Okay, well, good
Thank
night
you so
to
much.
sir. Thanks for attending.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
The recording will be up by tomorrow sometime.
I think